Welcome to the second half of week 7. Because if you think about it, we're sort of halfway through the course. If you sort of write off a bit what happened in the first week, we're halfway through the course. So you're halfway through your first semester at university. Now, I know lots of you have physics. The physics exam is this Saturday. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah? And there's lots of assessments due in right now. You've got one due in for this course tomorrow. It's a very potentially stressful time, especially because it's your first time at uni, for most of you at least, and you've probably taken it quite easy for the first couple of weeks, and then now you've quite possibly, a lot of you feeling a bit out of control and a bit stressed and, you know, struggling for water. And can I just say, struggling for air, that's completely normal. This is what always happens around the middle of semester. And then there will be, the stress will drop off a bit, but it will remain a bit stressful till the end of semester, and then it will all be over. But can I encourage everyone to not give up? Because at this time it can be very tempting to give up, to feel overwhelming and feel you have no control and feel da-da-da-da and panic and just give up. Shh, 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 shh. Can I say that you've just got to nut it out for another 6 or 7 weeks and then it's done. And it's going to be tough, but you can do it. And at the end, you'll feel really proud that you did. And if you don't do it, and if you give up, you'll always be a bit disappointed. And I always think in life, every time you give up or you do something you're not really proud of, that it sort of demeans you a little bit in your own mind. I mean, who cares what other people think of? And then that's not good for your self-confidence. And every time you try something really hard and succeed, I think it builds you up in your own mind and makes you a stronger person and a more resilient person. So even if you can't do brilliantly well, who cares? But don't give up. Giving up's bad. So don't think you can't do anything and so you do nothing. Like I know when I'm trying really hard to be sensible and just eat sensible food, and then there's this really delicious pile of Mars bars that I keep taking home because I forget to hand them out in the lectures. And I think, oh man, I'm so hungry and I haven't got any food, and I might have a Mars bar or two. Or two. And then I start feeling ashamed, think, oh, what am I doing? It's so stupid, oh, it's all so hopeless. And I'm very tempted to give up and then just eat all the rest of the Mars bars. Because I think I've blown it now, I might as well just give up. But it's really important to not, when things are down, to not give up. I think that's really important to do. So, can I say, uni grades are not like school grades. At school, everyone expects you to get a high mark. And you've probably got this expectation in your mind about what is a good mark and what is not a good mark. And I remember, in fact, in my first year at high school, the first assessment I got back, I made a wooden, crappy teapot holder thing in woodwork. And it wasn't so good and it wobbled a bit, but it was okay. And the teacher said, he gave me 16 out of 20. Now, I took it home to Mum and Dad, and some of my friends got 20 out of 20, and some got 10 out of 20. And I took it to Mum and Dad, and I said, this is my teapot holder. And they said, oh, it's wonderful, we really love it. And I said it sort of nervously, I got 16 out of 20. And I remember I stared really closely at their faces, because at that point I had no idea whether that was a good mark or a bad mark or anything like that. And Dad just looked at me and smiled and said, 16 out of 20, that's 80%, that's great. And it's weird, that one comment and that smile, just, oh, so relieved. For the rest of my time at school, I had this magic number in my head, 80%. If I ever got 80%, I was like, oh! So you probably, perhaps not in the same way, got fixed in your mind some sort of compass about what's a good mark and what's a bad mark at school. Let me say, uni is nothing like school. At uni, we have a range of grades. We have a fail if you get less than 50. And then we have a pass if you get between 50 and 65. And then we have a credit if you get 65 to 75, and a distinction if you get 75 to 85, and a high distinction if you get above 85. And if you're back in the school frame of mind, you'll be thinking, I don't know, let me make up something. Let's suppose you got a high TER and you're thinking, I'm like a 90 student. Or you got an OK TER and you're thinking like I'm an 80 student or a 70 student. At uni, it's not like that. If we give you a pass, it means we think you've passed the course. So you've done enough to pass the course. We think you can do the next course. So if you get 50, you've passed the course. So we think 50 is a pass. Does that make sense? At school, if you got 50, you'd be ashamed. You'd say, I only got 50. Because everyone, you know, teacher just sneeze and the teacher gives you marks. How could you only get 50? At uni, It means a pass. And actually I look really closely at everyone's exam. And I look at all the people that are borderline. And I spend hours agonizing over each individual case, and I'll ring up your tutors to ask them what they think, and I'll pull your assignments out and go over them by hand, and I'll do everything I can, and I'll just try and think, can this student program, have they mastered the objectives of this course? And I'll agonize about that for hours, and then I'll make a decision, yeah, okay, I've seen enough evidence here that I think they have mastered the objectives of the course, and I'll bump the mark up and you'll get 50. Or I'll be talking to the tutor and I'll say, no, I don't think they did. And I'll bump the mark down and you'll get 49. You know, I'll be agonizing around this sort of cut-off mark thing. And I put enormous amounts of effort in to make sure that no one ever fails that I think has mastered the course. It would be very easy just to put up with the marks as they are, but I will actually go over the marks. And around that time, and it's a horrible busy time of year, but I will spend enormous amounts of time making sure I fiddle the scaling so that no one that should pass the course fails it. Which will mean, because it's not fair to rearrange the order of students, it normally necessarily means that a few people that shouldn't pass the course end up scrooping by because someone who should pass the course came in slightly below them. And that's just lucky for them. But 50 is good. Now, if you got 65, we'd say that's a credit. And credit means credit to you. Well done. You've not only passed this course, you've done some neat stuff as well. You should be proud for how you went in this course. Now at school, maybe 75 wouldn't be such a good grade. The 65 wouldn't be such a good grade. But at uni, 65 is credit. 75. What does 75 mean? It means distinction. It means, oh my God, you are awesome at this course. Now we haven't even hit my dad's benchmark yet, have we? But awesome at the course. You won't get many distinctions. If you get a few distinctions, you'll be really proud and they'll be your best courses. If you get 85, you get something called a high distinction. Now what that means is you haven't got a life. You have worked too hard on this course and you should be ashamed. You need to spend more time with your family and friends. It's a glorious day outside and there's lots more other things to do. So I don't want everyone stressing out right now. You will all pass. You all have it in you to pass. That is what's required at uni. But a psychology student once told me that there's this thing called the curve of stress. Now, this is like saying they say, because I know nothing about psychology. What I could be telling you could be completely wrong. All I can claim is a psychology student once told it to me. And apparently it goes something like this. Apparently, there's how effective you are, measured in effective units, and then there's how stressed you are. And it turns out for most people, their stress curve looks a bit like this. Now, I don't know if it's actually a normal curve, but it's this sort of shape. So essentially, the idea is, actually, as you increase stress, you perform better. And you probably know that. If you can just bum around and no one puts a deadline on you and no one cares about anything, you're down here. You're sort of okay, but you know. And as you increase your stress, you get better. But the payoff starts to decrease. And there comes a point where as your stress increases even more, you get worse. Because you start freaking out, you start not trying to learn the stuff, but just memorize the stuff, you start panicking, your pulse rate goes up, you can't sleep, you get a cold for your exam because you crammed too much and you got sick. And so you don't want to get too stressed. So if you feel yourself getting really stressed, probably the best thing you can do for your uni and for your life and for your happiness is rather than continue to work really hard and get even more stressed, is just take a break and go for a walk and see a movie that makes you laugh. My wife told me last night, she'd heard, they say, that apparently children laugh like 300 times a day and adults laugh between 50 and 100 times a day. Isn't that sad? Now you guys, you're still on the children end of things, I reckon. Never let go of that. I'm going to hope to be a child till I'm dead. That's my plan. So you don't want to turn into one of those adults that live out here that laugh like under 100 times a day. That's just very, very sad. I reckon every time you laugh, it's got to be good, doesn't it? So essentially, what you've got to do well at uni when things get really stressed is to manage your stress rather than thinking you've got to manage your assignments or your courses or your... So maybe you're not going to do well in an assignment, or maybe you're going to miss something, and maybe you're not going to master every single thing, and maybe, you know, you hand something in late, and maybe you misunderstood the spec and you get it all completely wrong, and maybe, but in the big scheme of things, who cares? What you want to do is be a happy person doing well. A reasonable amount of work, not killing yourself, will pass you in any course. So don't kill yourself. Anything else is a bonus. But absolutely don't get too stressed and burn out and explode, because that's, you know, life's too good to do that sort of thing. Now,